Let's start with March 2020. Pandemic's declared. It's a few months after you've decided to take a personal step for yourself to go back to rehab. I got to ask you, just if you can go back to that moment in time when there's a lockdown and it suddenly hits, like, what do you remember feeling about, where you were at with your journey, where the world looked like it was going, and what that all might have meant to Metallica, and how did try and capture those feelings when you
Mm.
look back.
Yeah, the feelings of 2020, early spring of 2020 was, yeah, for me, there was a rebirth again, realizing my life was needing some help, going away to rehab, putting the halt on some band stuff again, out of personal health, mental health reasons. That takes priority, even though I just want to keep running and let the band just keep going and, run away from problems. Needed to deal with stuff, a lot of rawness at that point. Um, it's really difficult when there's so much stuff going on around you and the rest of your life to take time for yourself, to get yourself at least to a point where you feel like you're functioning. And for me, it has been easy at times to just shut out the rest of the world. Um, and then when obviously the pandemic happened, it was horrible, absolutely horrible for many people. Um, and in a strange way, it was kind of a silver lining for me. I was able to put the brakes on life and really take some time to embrace my needs at that time. So, yeah, not discounting all of the terrible things that were happening at that point. It was just a timely thing that happened, and I can see the positiveness in it for myself.
Was there any fear in dealing with Metallica stuff at that point for you? Was there any trepidation of dealing with the concept of maybe having to do something during the pandemic, dealing with these three other people, what your role, what your relationship with Metallica was at that point? I mean, was it something that caused you anxiety, and
Mm.
was your Blackened 2020 that you presented your way of telling people it's okay, I'm here, and it's going to be, from my perspective, it's all.
Mm. Yeah, the downtime during the pandemic, the fear of what does it mean to us? We were going in to write a record anyway at some point. It's not like we were in the middle of a tour or something, even though I guess we were. And that kind of put the brakes on that. But yeah, the pandemic put the brakes on everyone's touring. I had a feeling that, all all entertainment is going to be taking a hiatus, and what do you do with that time? And when we're at home, we're writing. It's kind of a no-brainer. So I was writing. I was doing stuff on my own. The COVID virus definitely put a lot of fear into a lot of people. I think certain other guys in the band that were, living more in big cities were affected by it a lot more than I was. I'm out in the middle of nowhere a valley in the mountain. Um, it didn't affect it didn't affect the mountain life as much. Still able to get outside, hang out with a few people that you were comfortable with, hiking, doing stuff, being able to get outside of the house at least. I know it was pretty difficult for Lars in particular, being in San Francisco in a city where it was locked down and there was tons of fear around it. People were dying and no one wanted to risk their life, which I get. But for me, I didn't feel the squeeze of it as much. And I tend to rebel against the fear of the world anyway. I create my own fears really well, really easily. Um, but at that point, yeah, how do we get together? How do we start writing? What are we going to do? And Zoom really took off zooming, you know. Thank God for that, because there was a connection. There was a connection while you're sitting in your kind of self-made quarantine. Even if you weren't sick, you were hiding. You were hiding out. And so Zoom was a great connection. Trying to figure out, how can we Zoom? How can we get together? How can we do something together over that media form? I kind of just got a little annoyed and pissed and just, you know what, fuck this. What would be a great thing to kind of reconnect the band again? How about, you know, we've done acoustic versions of certain songs for, you know, Bridge School, for All Within My Hands benefits, things like that. Why not take a song and just mess around with it? Blackened seemed to be something, I don't know, they're just something that clicked for me. And I just said, hey, guys, here's a challenge. I'm just going to send you something. You add on to it. You're musicians. Let's just embrace this challenge of isolation and connect with what we do best. So I just threw down. I mean, I had an acoustic mic and my regular vocal mic. Just threw it down on a couple different tracks. Sent it off to Greg Fiddleman, our producer, and they figured out how to get it to the other guys. And I say, hey, put whatever you feel you want to on this. Let's have fun with this, you know. Don't even, you know, don't study it, don't over listen to it, just feel it. And Blackened 2020 is kind of what happened from that. And that was the beginning of the reconnection online, with our creative flow. There are times when we're afraid to open that Pandora's box, the Pandora box of riffs. Oh, here's a riff. And then once you look at that riff, I mean, there's hundreds of other riffs. Okay, the process has started. We're going to start writing an album, you know. And it's important that we're all kind of in that same mind frame. But yeah, that Blackened little idea project was very healthy, I think, for all of us to reconnect.
There's one thing I want to ask about, just wrestling with your place in Metallica and who you are in Metallica and what that is.
Me too.
Yeah, right, exactly that. And you know, I think it's always a shock to people when they understand that you are maybe a little more vulnerable than you might appear in that regard, that you have confidence issues like everyone else. You know,
what do you mean by that?
Right, but when you throw out something like Blackened 2020 and say add on to it, is that also for you a way of, or was that also for you a way of saying, okay, let's just make sure that the chemistry that I've trusted for, you know, four decades is still there, and that we're all going to be able to, and it's going to be okay, and it is going to be fine.
That is possible, you know. Throwing the idea of just add on to this idea I got to do something. We need to do something here. I'm kind of spinning, going crazy here. I want to know that we're still, we're still viable in our art form. We're still connected. And that started a weekly Zoom. Just a weekly Zoom with the guys. And it's interesting because it's kind of not me planning something, getting something together like that. And I just said, hey guys, let's just get on Zoom once a week, hang out, chat with each other, see where we're at, all of that. That started another reconnection over the break, the COVID break. But Blackened 2020 in particular was I think an extension of my need for intuitive creation, and just stop thinking, just play, just do what God's given you, man. So I did that, handed it off, and that also really, there has been over the years an unspoken crush maybe with Lars and I doing all the stuff, not including others, wanting to open those doors of creativity to other people in the band and give them a louder microphone than maybe they want, but just throw that out there and say, do what you feel you want to do. That's why we're in a band. And I think it opened the door a lot more for, Kirk and Rob to be adding more ideas, things, running with stuff, having more input, which eventually ended up, when we finally did go into record. That is certainly something that started, back, I would say, on that Blackened 2020.
Whenever the times you've gone to rehab, the rumours start, Metallica's going to break up, it's never going to happen again. And I know that you, sometimes felt uncomfortable with being the object of everyone's projections, and I don't know, just they look at you and that's them and whatever. You're a screen for many people and you're an empathy point, and there's a lot of pressure in that. Do you think that this time, and you talk about maybe finding some comfort in being able to sit still during 2020 for a bit during the pandemic, you think this is the moment you're finally starting to accept that this is you, this is what you do, this is how you speak to people, this is how you connect with them, it's what you're, you've said it a lot more recently, but I never used to hear you say it. This is what I'm here to do, and I know you said this is what God put you here to do. But do you think you've only really just started to trust that in the last couple of years? Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I think, and also out of just sheer fear that I don't know what else to do with my life. Playing music and being of service, going on tour, playing, writing, creating. Thank God so much for that, because I don't know where I'd be. So I do care for it, and I need to embrace it and accept it. As far as other people's worries and concerns and fears about Metallica continuing on or not, I don't feel responsible for them, but I do feel that I'm responsible for what I can do, what I can put out there. I'm not worried about, and maybe it seems egotistical to think that, there's so many people relying on the next Metallica record to get them through the year or whatever it is. That is not. I get it that it does help people. It's not up to me, absolutely. And I think most of the feedback around, me going to rehab and all of this stuff and people's theories, people's ideas. What does that mean? What trying to figure me out. I'm still trying to figure me out. All that stuff's out of my control, man. And I get most of that stuff is out of fear because they want Metallica to continue. So do I. And I'm doing my best to do that. And that's why I go away. That's why I go and reboot. That's just me. And embracing that part of me. And it also allows me to be more vulnerable, looking the world more in the eye and just saying, hey, this is how my life is. I wish it was different. I wish it was easy. I wish I didn't have to do all this stuff, but here's what I go through. And it brings fuel and meaning and purpose to my craft.
Well, for whatever it's worth, I think that the whole core of this record is honesty and comfort and vulnerability and the demons that maybe you have and that you will always have to accommodate in some way. And I think it's very clear that, you know, those are things that you've accepted to an extent that, you know, they're part of you and you will live with them. But we'll get into that in a moment. I do want to ask you, as you're sorting and going through, as you open the Pandora's box of riffs for this record, you're starting to put them together, with all the evaluation that you're doing at that point of where you are, you know, thinking about the band. I don't want to make this sound morbid, but, you know, did it ever hit you that, okay, this is the third act in life? You know, there's generally 3 acts, right? You're probably 30, 30, 30, right? You think in terms of years of being alive, and you're entering the third act, and there's really no time, or there's no reason to be afraid of these vulnerabilities anymore. I mean, was that something that struck you when you were starting to put together in your own head what this record was going to be about, and when you were coming to the 72 Seasons concept and so on? Were those thoughts that you were having, like, fuck it, I need to, this is going to be real, this is going to be my final phase is here, we're going to make this?
It's interesting, the whole fuck it part of, you know, I don't care what other people think, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to write. I guess there's maybe 3 different phases of fuck it's too, you know. The first phase of fuck it was, you know, we don't care what other people think, we're just rebellious against the world, we have no idea why, but we are. And then in the middle ground, you're kind of sorting out your, you know, what does this mean to other people, and still kind of having that rebellious fuck it. That will always be there. I mean, you know, you hear of, I don't know, I talk to a lot of older people, and there's, you know, there is a, fuck it, I don't care what you think, you know, I'm an old dude, I don't care, you know, there is maybe a little bit of that, but at the end of the day, trying to hide what goes on in my head and in my life, you know, I have a sacred story, everyone does, everyone's got one, and I get to share mine. And that is a blessing. Other people get to share them in whatever ways they can, you know, with family, with friends, with writing a book, whatever. I get to share it through music, and it gets to reach a lot of people. So I'm blessed.
I had a note that I thought that the actual architecture of this record was very raw and very instinctual. It felt very like just feral in the best possible way. Really enjoying influences from the past. Really enjoying your instruments. I mean, I heard a lot of joy in the guitar playing. And I'm going to ask you to tell us in a minute what guitars you used, because it seems like you were surely having a good time with those. So talk about how you all came to putting these riffs together into the songs that they became, and talk about Rob's role and Kirk's role and your role in opening the door and inviting that collaborative energy in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of open heart surgery in a way in this album. We opened up. I was much more ready to open my heart to everyone in the band, lyrically, emotionally, and creatively. I was really an advocate, going out of my way to say, Kirk, send in your riffs. We need stuff. Come on, you know. I don't want to sit there with Lars and create the songs anymore. I want everyone to be a part of it and be in it. Can you all show up? You know, can we all be in the studio together? Can we jam on these things together? Can you speak up and say what you think might be great and not so great? You know, really wanting to open it up, and there were challenges in that, but I think we got through most of them, you know, and again, we've all got our own personalities for a reason, and sometimes when you put the mic in front of someone and say, here you go, say whatever you want, they're not they realize that maybe they don't want that. And they're better off playing off of what you come up with. And I'm the same way. Someone will come up with an idea. I'm good at taking that and hopefully bringing it up to the next level. So it was challenging, but it was available. And that felt very freeing for everybody. It took longer because there were more voices, obviously. And then, obviously, Greg Fiddleman is a trusted outside ear that he's able to just say, I don't know about that, or hey, that's really good, do that again. And so the writing process was a lot more open, a lot more fun, having all four of us here. You know, here's a riff, let's go jam on it, and then see what comes up from it. So I think maybe the rawness that you talk about, there's so many different ways to approach writing a song. You know, some in the past were already kind of put together and brought to the band. This was a little more, hey, this riff from Manchester, it's awesome. Let's see what we can do with it. So it started with less ingredients, I would say, and we were building this record. And there were 4 chefs instead of just 2.
Interesting. I mean, look, what you said about opening the process up, I think that the bit that would be most intriguing for people to get to grips with there is, it's one thing to say that, but it's another thing. You and Lars have been locked in for decades in that process. And obviously I'll ask him about it as well, but how hard was it to say to him, like, look, I need the other input. I don't want it to just be me and you governing this. And how hard an adjustment was it for him do you think? I mean, how did that particular stage of what you wanted to get going end up happening?
Well, I think we all have fear of change. We all have fear of change, or wait, this is working, let's just keep going with it, you know. But as an artist, as someone who's creative, I like those challenges. I don't like them out in a regular life very much. I don't like changes and challenges, but in the studio, I feel comfortable with it. And I think Lars eventually understood why and where I was trying to go with it. And even if there wasn't input from others, just having that, again, white space for input was great. You know, there would be times when, you know, we all 4 would be in the studio and Lars would be looking at me like, you know, what's the next, you know, what do you feel the next part is? And I would just be quiet and just say, you know, hey, what do you guys think? What are you guys feeling? You know, that is new and freeing, actually. It felt really free to kind of just sit back and let the process happen more. And yeah, it did take longer. And we might have gone through 10 ideas that didn't work to get to one that did. But if you're not out there mining for gold, you're not going to find any. So there were nuggets that came out of that were just amazing.
Do you think that maybe, and we'll come to just for a moment, flip to the very end of the process and the album's done. When you look back now, do you think that the biggest chemistry element has been that, have you all learnt to maybe trust each other's differences more than ever, and know that whatever's perceived as what someone brings to the table is just as important in its own way, that maybe it's not so important for you all to be like, you know, 25%, you've got to step up and do more. Like, I mean, obviously, Kirk is always someone that's spoken of as like, well, you know, it'd be nice if he did a bit more here and here, but what Kirk does bring is incredible. I mean, I think in Emirata, that final solo he does in Emirata's, I think probably his best solo in 20 years. I mean, it's mind-blowing, right? So do you think the trust factor there of trusting the differences has solidified more?
I think the trust factor in each of us and the acceptance of who we are and how we go about things is becoming easier the older we get. And we all have our ways of overthinking stuff, underthinking stuff, not being prepared, being over-prepared, and embracing all that. You know, we all can tend to go back to our default, Or we can also pretend that I need this and I need to say this in this band. And at the end of the day, it's more important just to be heard than to actually have it happen, you know? So allowing the voice, you learn even more about that person. And they learn a lot more about themselves. Like, I'm pissed because I'm not getting what I need out of this band. And then when it's open to you, you realize that, wow, it's kind of harder than I thought. And maybe I don't have that, or maybe, you can't have 4 leaders. You can't. It's just not this is, the good stuff rises to the top, no matter where it comes from. That's what I want. I want all the channels to be open so the good things can float to the top. And it doesn't matter where they come from.
The concept for the album, the 72 Seasons, essentially, your first 18 years, so on and so forth. Lyrically, I'm interested, this is an architecture question again, as you're putting these riffs together, are you already, as the lyrical, conceptual side of what you're going to write for the songs, also like coming up to ramp as those riffs are coming together and as those songs are being put together? And if they are you sharing them with everyone? Are you sitting down and saying, look, this is what I'm going to be talking about. This is what's going to be going down. Or is it, no?
It's not that I'm not sharing it with them, but I don't know what it is yet. In the past, there's been, okay, we've got 14 riffs. Here's 14 song ideas. And you just kind of link them together. What matches with one thing? And, a lot of them are either just subject matter or potent words, or maybe even a song title with nothing else. What I tried to do this time is to introduce the vocal patterns and the cadence, the intensity. What are the vocals going to be doing in this song? Trying to introduce that earlier than ever to make me feel more comfortable, and make it a part of the song writing, so then Lars can understand where to chill out, where to go crazy, where to put certain symbols even, I think it's helpful for everybody to have at least an inkling of what the vocals are going to be doing. Some songs took, 10 different ideas, and we would cut and paste, wow, the beginning of this verse is really great, but the second half of the verse and this is really great. Let's put these together. So I was a lot more vulnerable or open in the, not so much the lyrics, but the cadence, the vocals. Here's where I'm going with it, and that was freeing as well, and it was helpful for everybody. And then just kind of filling in the blanks after that, with lyrics, which I find really challenging and fun. Here's the cadence of it, plug in the words. It is a giant puzzle,
Because the cadence was, that's a good phrase for it, because I felt that you went out there quite a lot more vocally, and actually, if you're walking towards the edge of a cliff, you kind of decided to dangle over it a few times and see what happened for you. And you mentioned, but word vulnerable comes up again. There's moments where it sounds like your voice is almost about to break. Mm-hmm. It actually gets almost, not thin, but it's like you're pushing and pushing and pushing. So you're telling me that cadence came before you started writing lyrics?
Yes.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So now I have to ask, does the cadence then inform the concept of the lyrics?
Sometimes it doesn't, and that's its own challenge. Fast singing, is it? It's not for deep, intense words. I guess I don't really know how to explain how that process works, but for me, I just do want to say that I think the pandemic, being at home, getting some of these songs, going home, messing with it in my own home studio, made me feel a little more open, a little freer to try different stuff. And then I would send them in, and then people would hear it and go, wow, you've never sounded like that before or done that. And and it's great, or and I don't like it. That's okay. But I felt comfortable in my own room at home being able to do that stuff instead of just, okay, now it's time to try these lyrics out, and and you're sitting in a vocal booth, and so I had worked and worked and worked on these vocals and lyrics, certain notes. I mean, there's higher singing on this record than there's ever been, really. There's growlier stuff. I don't know, I've felt a lot freer with just me and my microphone at home. So I think that helped open it up a little more. But for me, I really do address the vocals as another instrument. I'm a rhythm guitar player. I love cadence. I love percussion. I love playing drums. The vocals are another part of that percussion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's you've got the double-edged sword of having a voice that is an extra instrument, but also you have lyrics that really do stand with it. And look, I know that this has always befuddled me. It's befuddled me for decades that you're not as confident in your writing as I think you should be. And by the way, I give your lyrics an A+. So,
Gold star.
I give you an A+. But no, I mean, 72 seasons as a concept is it's very intense. Let me ask you, how much of that was informed lyrically by your life as a child, and how much of it was informed by your life as the parent of children? Well, there's the question.
Yeah, well, 72 seasons as a concept is, that's been digested from somewhere else. Meaning, it was a concept. It was the 72 seasons of sorrow, and I dropped the sorrow part off because, the first 18 years of life aren't all sorrow. And we tend to just focus on that in our adult life. Like, I need to fix all the shit that was wrong when I was a kid. There was great stuff as well. So 72 seasons, everyone's got their version of what their 72 seasons were and what they mean to them now. Yeah, having kids definitely helps you understand your childhood and what your parents went through. More the latter. Me being a parent, it's like, oh, come on guys, give me a break. I'm just a human, But when you're a kid, you look up to your parents as gods, They can do no wrong, and whatever they say is what's supposed to be. And then, when you get older, you go, man, I'm sorry. I put you guys up on a pedestal and made you gods and blamed you for this and that, or wished differently, but you were just humans too. You were doing your best, and you were working with the tools of your parents. So it just goes back generationally. And as a parent, I just really, what I want to do is maybe do it a little better than my parents did, and that's really what I want to ask of myself. There's an inheritance, really, of whatever they've brought. And you inherit some of those things. And there's some I need to work on. There's some I need to completely forget. And there's some I need to find. So You know, everyone's had a childhood. Most people, most people I've met have had a childhood, whether it's good or bad. We can decide later on in life. And you can't change your childhood, but you can change your concept of it and what it means to you now.
I mean, it's actually a really important thing to bring up because, you know, the whole, when it's been presented, even to me thus far, 72 seasons, it seems like it's a sort of an almost dark meditation on how, you know, your childhood is potentially, you know, screwed up by your parents and so on. But what you're saying is, no, it doesn't have to be that. It is, it's good and bad, it's positive and negative, it's you know, and you're almost telling me that in a sense that maybe for you, you sort of forgiven your parents and some of the transgressions you may have laid at their feet in previous years. I mean, that's what it feels like you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's hanging on to the past hasn't served me well, but changing the narrative of my childhood has been helpful, and that is that's a lifelong process, man.
Yeah, but I think it's important for people to understand the direction that these lyrics that were going for you, because there is a whole other tack where it's just a further extension of you getting your dark side out. I mean, you know, and I'll ask you this now, later on.
Well, it's interesting to contemplate, you know, am I who I am just because of all that? Can I change? Can I not change? Am I capable of changing? Is this just ingrained? Is it you know, in the stars? Is it, you know, I read my astrology thing for today, and this is just how it is. I mean, I don't know. Nobody knows shit, all right? And I certainly don't either. But I know the parts of me that I'd like to change take work, and it's hard. It's hard work. But I've got awareness of it. And if there's some things I can't change, that's really not up to me as well. But the blame part, you know, blaming my parents for all of this and that and whatnot, it's got to stop, you know, because I have the capacity to make my own choices now. And do I keep defaulting to how I learned how to make choices? And, you know, there's a lot of psychology in this, and I can overthink all of this. But at the end of the day, is it that 72 seasons that form your true or false identity? Am I able to change or not? That's a lifelong question.
Yeah, fantastic. And then, I mean, there's something that I think we exchanged early on when I first read these lyrics, and you had said to me, you know, I look forward to bringing light to darkness, which is kind of an extension of what you're saying here. And again, is this, you don't seem as afraid to address dark things, shitty things about yourself that you don't like and didn't like and may not like in the future. You seem much more comfortable with the fact that, okay, it's part of the whole picture and that's okay. Is that, you know, it seems to be a theme. I mean, you know, chasing light obviously talks to me that way.
Yeah, I guess the older I get, realizing, all right, there's a shelf life to me, and why would I not bare my soul in my art? And it becomes safer and safer as I get older.
But in your everyday life as well as a human being, it seems like you're more, again, I'm taking this from what I'm reading and listening to here, and also seeing how you are these days. You seem more comfortable with the fact that, you know, people talk about change, you must change. You know, you got to change how you are. And it's like, well, no, you know, that dark person, that you know, negative thing that occasionally pops up for dinner as an uninvited guest, rather than, you know, lock the door. It's like, well, I got to find a way to put a plate at the table and just kind of deal with it.
Exactly. Yeah, invite that demon to dinner and hang out and understand it, get to know it better. That will take the surprise or sting out of it. That demon's not going away. I I get caught up a lot in the there's something wrong with me, I have to change it or else. Yeah. And I think the key for me, at least what I'm feeling lately, is you learn about it. If you don't like something, learn about it, and it will teach you something.
Is it a relief to you to know, as you take these life lessons on board in the journey, and you maybe are not as angry about some things as you used to be, maybe angry about others, that no, there's no direct correlation. It doesn't mean, well, if I'm not angry about this shit anymore, then my riffs are going to go down like several watts. Is there a relief in knowing it's not like that? That, hey, I still bring it, I still play hard, I still can play aggressively, even if I'm having an okay day, and even if I'm expressing a positive emotion. Is that a relief?
I've always felt that. It's just not, that's not new to me. But I just realized that, the chasing of happiness is kind of futile. If I'm accepting and comfortable of what I do have, then I can create the happiness there instead of keep trying to chase. And then that also quells the fears of, others that if you're not angry, you're not going to make great music. It's kind of ridiculous, Being an artist, many artists go through many phases of their life, and you look at paintings, you look at writings, you either enjoy what they're doing or you don't, but to be true to what's going on inside you through your art form is important to me.
I mean, another side question about you and Lars, your relationship. I mean, has he ever asked you about your lyrics? I mean, has he ever sat down and, asked you, like, hey, what do you mean when you say this? What do you mean when you're thinking that? I mean, do you ever have the proverbial, like, tea and biscuit chat? Like, you know what I mean? Like, just sort of.
There has not been a lot of that. There have been comments from him just saying that, wow, these lyrics are really good, him not going into detail about them, and nor do I do that with his drumming. When you hit the third tom in that roll, it was fantastic. I really related. We trust each other to bring the best to the table. I think more this time was, some of the feedback I got from him was, I like this cadence better than this one. Simple as that. There wasn't so much the lyrics, but song titles, there's input on, and here's the song titles, and I can kind of get wound up because Lars tends to, he could name a certain song from 3 albums ago, and he still calls it by the working title, oh yeah, remember that's the Black Squirrel riff. It's like, what the hell are you talking about, Oh, you mean Cyanide? Yeah, yes I do. And I can take that as a slight on not wanting to include the lyrical content into that piece of art, or I can just say, hey, that's where his head was. He remembers that riff and putting that riff in that song, and that's where he's at. But when it comes to song titles, he likes to voice his opinion, and I put that out to everybody in the band. We have a little powwow and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking, for song titles. What do you think? And they'll sit there and go through the lyrics, and maybe this is more potent, or kind of like what we do with the artwork or the album title itself. So it is a democracy in that way. And I do find that living in consultation around that is helpful. Sometimes it's not what I want to hear, but again, we all have to deal with differences of opinions and be somewhat humble in the band. And, you know, I'm the lyric writer. I should be able to title all the songs. I should be able to title the album because this is what's coming out of me. No one else has done it. All that. It's like, well, no. This is representing all four of us. And even more than just the four of us. But we just want to make it the best. And once I understand that everyone is wanting the best, then you can throw it out to democracy and say, hey, what do you think is the best? And if, you know, 3 people say this one's better than this one, okay, all right.
I guess it's a little bit of let's not know or define how, between you and Lars, let's not know or define how the sausage is made, let's just enjoy it. Like, you don't want to mess with the dynamics too much, because if we know too much about each other's process or thoughts, then it might not, the magic might disappear.
Disappear. I agree with that. How is the sausage made? Yeah. And I'm not really great at carrying any of that in my mind or soul, you know, oh, that riff was written by him, or that song titles was hit. There's none of that, really. At the end of the day, it might be important, but I don't care. And, you know, I can't tell you who wrote what riffs, really. And that's fine.
I've got to go to Enamorada. I mean, I think when I first heard it, I mean, it was not the last song of the record, but I think it was pretty clear that it had to end up. It's a brilliant conclusion to the record, because it almost leaves a question mark as to where is this going. It's not a conclusion. It's what comes next at the end of the song. The way it ends, it's probably as close as you've got to a fade out. I think, you know what I mean, for a long time, and it hangs in that way. The song lyrically, to me, it was your ultimate piece with discordant, like, you know, negativity or anger. Like, okay, this is our marriage, and well, before we get into the song and how it came together, I just can't believe that you guys wouldn't sit at the end of hearing that and just like have a chat and say, oh, this might be one of the best things we've written. Like, and I'm not saying you're usually sitting there slapping each other's backs, but it is incongruous to me that you guys comment so little on the positive aspects of what you bring to the table. Do you think, I guess I got to say, do you think that's ever going to change? Do you think you're ever going to be able to say to each other, look, awesome, we've done a great job, right? Or does it not, you know?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. The attaboys or the congratulations guys, we just made it a fantastic record, you know. It's weird. It's like stopping in the middle of a race to say, man, you're doing really good at the race here. I mean, it's not like it's a race to the end, but you're in the middle of life, you know. But Lars has said to me on 2 occasions, like, we've made a really great record, and we should be really proud of this thing, you know, for whatever we've gone through, our ups and downs, and through the pandemic and all of that stuff. We've made a fantastic record, and we can be proud of that. You know, musically, lyrically, art-wise, everything, concept-wise, I think it's pretty darn strong, and it feels great. And it's, again, it's another leg of the race.
That actually explains completely why you won't do that, and why it will probably never happen, because it's a continual journey.
Yep.
I mean, as I've always said, and this is something else, feel free to comment on, I've always felt that you will, you know, I don't see you ever writing an autobiography, but if people want
Every album's autobiography, and that's kind of how it is. It's just, yeah, I'm writing my life story through the lyrics and all the albums.
Yeah, I think so. And then, I mean, let me ask you about like just the concluding lyrics to Misery. You know, she's not why I'm living. It just seems like such a like, look, she's here. I know it. I mean, I had to look up what inamorata meant, and most people probably will listen to what we say now, read so what. But it actually is your missus or your female partner.
Yeah, I mean, that whole song, you know, Misery as My Mistress. Yeah, you know, I'm trying to hide her. I'm trying to, you know, I enjoy her at certain times, but I don't want the world to know about her. I don't want to introduce her to the world because it's not okay. So Misery as a Mistress, but it does serve a purpose in my life. But I don't want it to be my life, and I'm tired of it running my life. So that pretty much sums up that song, Inamorata.
Yeah, and look, I think that there'll be, you know, I think several other people will break this album down track by track. That's not, I don't want to do that. I think that the holistic view of it is far more interesting to me. It feels like also, in a way, it's the concluding point of a journey. You know, if you look at Metallica stages, and if we're looking in 3 acts or whatever, and this is the final 30 years or 25, whatever, it feels like this is very much sort of a follow-up to Saint Anger in a weird way, in the rawness of it, and in the way that those lyrics were so like raw and so. I mean, I think there's probably more pain on that record than I've heard on any of the records you've put out since. I mean, that strikes a massive chord with me. So those songs, and this seems like almost, it's like, it's okay. That had to happen for me to get to here. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that purging, this is the result of it. Seeing why the pain, and obviously, you know, doing a lot of soul searching, self work on self. All these lyrics have surfaced, and it makes sense to give them a place to speak, you know, put them in certain scenarios. You know, certain songs are, there's a kid, there's not a kid, there's an adult, there's a whatever, but to let them have a voice and to include them in me.
Let's talk about something a little fun here for a second. That quiver of guitars that you used on this record, my new awareness of what these guitars mean to you, and how much they like inspire you and like make you a kid again, or like whatever. So just run us through the guitars that make up the sounds of this record.
Yeah, the equipment used on this record, always searching for better tone, always searching for a better guitar sound. And I end up with stuff I've used before because it sounds the best, and that's okay. It's helping me speak. Yeah, I've used, the copperhead guitar, as we call it, copper top, whatever you want to call it. The copper one that's a snake bite that has been painted like horrendously thick and shouldn't sound good at all. The pickups have been painted. It's got the tone. It just sounds great as a main guitar. So that one always gets put down first. I don't know. I used it a bunch on Hardwired. The So What guitar got some play. The Eat Fuck guitar showed up a lot on it as a second guitar. But the guitar that probably showed up more on any of the songs besides the Copper Top was the OGV, you know, the very first guitar I played in Metallica. It's hanging up in the control room, and I get to pick it up and play it. And with all of its nicks and damage, you know, rings pounded, holes in it, and scrapes and this and that, and all the, especially on the neck, it's like a minefield that's been destroyed. It feels comfortable and great, and it plays easy, and it sounds lively and young. So that guitar is gonna probably never go away. I think hopefully it'll come with me to the grave.
Is it like a teleporter back to when you first were playing it? I mean, when you put it on, when you play it, is it like Back to the Future? Like, you know, you're in the phone booth, like, oh, here I am again with all the.
It does remind me of the Kill 'Em All tour, for sure. It just does. That was the only guitar I had, so it's got to remind me of that. But we've been through hell. We've been through heaven together. You know, this guitar has been a great friend.
Yeah, you can hear it. You can hear it in the energy of the Black Bush.
The guitar's had its own 72 seasons, it sounds like.
Yes, it's died. Yeah, that guitar has definitely died a few times and come back to life. You know, the neck's been broken on that thing. The headstock's come off 3 times. And the tailpiece just broke on this album. But it's a survivor like me.
Let's talk about, first of all, let's talk about what Tim Sassenti is doing video-wise, how it is to have someone like him interpret these songs, how you know, what you're feeling of his interpretation so far, and what it's like to work with his aesthetic.
Hoo-wee. We've got a fantastic extended art family. From graphics to video shooting, concepts, ideas. Really grateful for these people in my life that help bring our ideas into a visual. You know, I've always been a huge fan of graphics, visuals, logos, all of that stuff, obviously. And to have like-minded people that are able to, boy, wrangle in new crazy stuff, I love it. And as far as Tim, our director on these, I'm blown away by his vision. You know, you go into a friggin' broken down, cold ass, stinky warehouse somewhere in a pretty dangerous area, and you create some of the most beautiful art ever. It's fantastic. I don't know, his vision is maybe, you know, don't make it fancy. Make it a little bit of a struggle. Or let's have a place that's already fucked up and let's fuck it up some more. Whatever we do in here, it's not going to hurt it anymore, you know? And I'm blown away also by, okay, 10 days ago, we filmed this thing, and here's a edited version of it that's going out. Done. Like, what? How can you turn that around so quickly? And it is because he's a live performer. He's a live performer. He's calling out. He's got a lighting guy. I mean, he's got a laser guy. He's got guys. And he'll yell out, change the color or speed it up or something. He's a real director calling the shots in the moment. This is not, oh, we'll fix it in the post. Okay, here's where this comes in, and we'll do that, and that's what takes so long. But he's doing a live show. He really is. So his lighting, his lasers, his vision, where the cameras are going, it's a live show in a way, but done very theatrically.
Talking about visuals and David Turner, I'm going to ask you what the colour yellow means to you when you see it. What emotion does it stir? Because this is obviously we don't have time to get into it, but what emotion does it stir when you see yellow?
Yellow for me is light. It is light. It is it's a source of goodness. So against the black, it really pops, Flame, maybe a little bit of flame, but it is light. I mean, my vision was I wanted this album called Lux Eterna, and because that summed up all the songs for me, kind of an eternal light that was always inside of us that maybe is just now coming out. And I was outvoted, which is great. 72 seasons is definitely, it's more chewable. You get to kind of figure out what it is. You get to dig into it and chew on it a little more. But so that color came out of Lux Eterna.
It's really interesting. I mean, they're both entry points into long discussions, but it is definitely one approach versus another. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's that visual. Let's talk about bringing it on tour. I mean, again, 25 shows. You know where you're going to be the next 2 years, and you also know that these shows are going to be physically challenging, I would suggest. And are you looking forward to that challenge and the concepts behind the production in the round in a stadium? I mean, again, when I'm saying all this to you, what does it make you think? What is your anticipation for it?
What I know about myself is I'm an anxious guy, and before anything, filming a video, going into whatever, going on tour, coming off tour, I have anxiety about what is it gonna be like, and I try to figure it out, and it's like, stop. When you get there, you're gonna see your road family, you're gonna see the fans, you're gonna see what you're doing, and it's all gonna be perfect. Just as soon as, trust that when I get behind the mic, I'm good. This is what I do. But all the build-up before that is, oh my God, is this going to be okay? What's going to happen here? And have anxiety, and that's okay. I know that about myself. So the worry, all right, it's part of me, and trying to not let it dominate me, because I know once I'm there, it's going to be great. The stage is going to be big. Going in the round in a stadium, okay. We're 59 years old. What the hell are we doing? We should be going smaller. But we love a challenge. And live especially, we've got some great family members that come up with great ideas. And they all run it by us. We went out recently out to a stadium, and it was all marked out. What is it going to look like? What do you think? Can I get from, mic number 1 to mic number 20 in, between verses or not? So there's a lot of things that come into play with it, and it's going to be different and it's going to be challenging. But having the amount of people in the snake pit that it's going to be is going to be fantastic. I mean, without giving away too much stuff, this show, putting on an in-the-round show in a stadium, I don't think has been done particularly great yet. And we're going to try.
Are you now more comfortable than ever with putting that live mask on and enjoying it? and enjoying that side of who you are, and not being afraid that you might look like, oh, do I look like a dick up here, thinking that I'm a rock god or whatever? Like, it's cool. I'm enjoying it. I like feeling like this, and people like to see me like this, and it's an exchange. Are you comfortable now, more comfortable with that than you ever have been?
I believe so. There's less duality and more congruency with it. It's no secret that I'm a different person. Lars is a different person. When we're on stage, I think anyone would develop some type of survival technique to be up in front of 80,000 people. Mine has turned into more humor and more, I guess, intuition, more shooting from the hip, more embracing the unknown up there. I wish I could do that better in regular life. But if something goes wrong on stage with 80,000 people out there, and we screw up a lyric, or the power goes out, or somebody falls off the stage, or you screw up a song and you stop it, I'm so much more comfortable with, if I walk up to the mic, something's gonna come out that makes some sense. And not be paralyzed with the fear of it. And I think a lot of it has to do with, being more vulnerable, being okay with, we are a live band, You're gonna see some freaking horrendous mistakes, and it's going to be unique. But also embracing one set of eyes as well. Being able to, because at least for me, there's a lot of times when, it's just the backdrop. This is a giant backdrop of people. And I look at it as one entity. It's like one thing vibrating, But when I'm able to look one person in the eyes, put a soul in that person, and identify and talk with that person at that moment, that's helpful for me. It makes it more of a reality to me, because there's nothing humble, really, about being up in front of 80,000 people throwing shapes, And these people singing your lyrics. It's an experience that I can't explain. So anything that grounds me, makes me feel like a human, like a mistake, falling down on stage, stuff like that, it's all helpful. It's all helpful.
And also, I have to say, I think that, to my mind, this started in Chile and carried on in Argentina last year, and has continued through America, is when you directly empathize with 60, 70, 80,000 people about, we all struggle sometimes, look out for each other and talk to each other and be there for each other. When did you develop the courage to do that and to say that? What made you make that step? I think it's one of the most important, and look, we've worked together and been friends for decades, right? But it sent a chill down my spine, and I was like, really fucking proud of you for doing that, because it speaks to a lot of people, and it's really important. And if you don't do it, there's a lot of people who don't go there because they shouldn't. So it's huge, and I am interested to know when that moment was one that you were prepared to get into.
I can overthink it and try to come up with some great idea, but it wasn't me. This wasn't me. There's a break in the song, and if it's what I think you're talking about, in the middle of Fade to Black, There's been a break in the song. And I would say something like, can you feel it? You know, but let's go a little deeper than that. Can you feel it? Do you feel what I feel? And explain a little more of the different feelings, the taboo feelings, the unworthy feelings, the feelings like I don't fit in, and I'm terminally ill. I am uniquely broken, and I'm never going to be as good as you. Let's talk about that, because we're all here, and I feel the same. I'm up here and living my dream, but I can still feel those things. So why not? This is some kind of monster brought live onto the stage, possibly. I mean, there were times where I just feel, I feel insecure and useless out here I don't know what I'm doing. And saying that on stage and people going, wow, okay, he could feel that during all this. You know, if I'm at work and feeling like I'm spinning my wheels or my life's going nowhere, yeah, I'm not alone in that. So,
what's your greatest hope for the future? I mean, it doesn't have to be one. If you've got a couple of things, you know, what are you? Yeah, that's the question. There's no more to say than that.
Wow, I guess my greatest hope is to continue feeling hopeful, feeling like there's more to explore, that you don't retire from being an artist, that no matter what happens, we're going to be okay, no matter what. The achievements, you know, being in the Guinness Book of World Records for playing all the continents in 1 year, fantastic. Great stories to tell. But connecting with people, being of service, helping people through their darkness. My flashlight works, sometimes it doesn't. And being able to say that out loud, it might be selfish. It helps me stay grounded. And if it connects with someone else, I'm serving my purpose.